Hey, Ayana.
Hi, sir.
All right, I see that you are ready to go.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Sir, about the books from the document center, I have to tell you when I'm ready for the rest of them, right, sir?
Not exactly. But I have the contact for the person at the document center. So it would be nice if you did, so I could contact her to find out if she will be there when you um are ready.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. Because you don't want you to go there and the document center is not open. Because they don't really open every day since school is not on.
Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon, Ayana.
Hi, Serena.
All right, afternoon, Serena. I was just searching for some documents to add to the group. Um, Anybody using a laptop? Any are using a laptop, Serena, Ayana?
Yes, sir.
No, sir.
All right, so Serena, the documents that I just added to the WhatsApp group. Can you share?
Yes, sir. WhatsApp is connected to my laptop.
Awesome. Yeah. All right, let me see which one first. So Haitian Revolution. So let's since everybody don't join yet, let's just do the Haitian Revolution again. So bring up that slide first.
Okay, sir. One moment.
So by the time we actually schedule to start, then we should see the others coming in. Cause
Sir.
we don't
Uh,
want them to miss anything. Yeah?
Sir, can you give me the
Oh yeah. Sorry. Meeting. All right, go now. All right, go for Zoom to make it a little bit bigger. All right. Ayana, how is that for you? Can you see it good? Yeah, it should be fine.
Yes, sir, it's fine.
All right, so let's start going. All right, so Haitian Revolution, and notice the year 1791 to
Serena?
1804.
Oh, never mind. It's good now.
All right, so this is a quick review of the revolution, part one. All right, so let's scroll. So by 1790, the colony of Saint Dominic, present day Haiti, was torn by numerous dissensions. As we mentioned in the last class, that the white planters wanted independence from revolutionary France. The free coloreds, or the free persons of color, attracted they were attracted to the concept of equality embedded in the doctrine of the rights of a man, um, liberty, fraternity, equality. So they wanted full citizenship. The enslaved now, which would be the third group, they wanted abolition of slavery. Each group strove against the other, making strange alliances both inside the colony and with factions in France, England, United States, and Spain. Saint Dominic was a colony in full revolt and on the verge of being lost to France. The French National Assembly sent the civil sent the Second Civil Commission to try to save the colony for France and restore production. I think that was um, Sotonax. Name Felicite Sonthonax. Right. So Sonthonax, his job was to restore order when he came to France. Of course, he was able to some degree to do that, but of course, it didn't work out in his favor after a while. Let's scroll to the next. Uh,
Sir,
yes.
did Napoleon send his brother or some relative to
I think his
Santana?
brother-in-law.
Oh, okay, Leclerc or something like that. I don't
Leclerc.
remember.
Yeah, man, Leclerc. So we'll come to that later on. So by early 1792, we realized that the enslaved Africans controlled most of the rich northern area. Um, and the whites occupied the southern sector. Yeah, let's scroll again. How many people do we have now? All right, so we have 1, 2, 3. Could somebody give Francis a call? Find out what's up with her. Ayana, could you read for us the paragraph at the top? Let me see if I can catch.
Says by early.
Right.
Okay, sir. By early 1792, the enslaved Africans controlled most of the rich northern plain and Cap Francois, modern Cap. What's this? What is that? Haitian was under constant siege. Hundreds of whites had been killed. The plantations were in ruins, and the Africans were learning their military skills. Yet it was not the slaves whom the assembly feared. It was the struggle between free persons of color and the white planters. Many of the planters openly favored independence. They were carrying on an illegal and profitable trade with the newly formed United States. Not only were they profiting economically, the US's recent revolution against Britain was a model which the planters studied well. On the other hand, the free persons of color. Oh, wait, sorry, I should continue?
Yeah, man.
Okay. On the other hand, the free persons of color looked to France as their sole hope. Britain, France, Spain, and the United States did not allow citizenship to blacks. The French had at least declared the universal rights of man, and this ambiguous principle seemed to offer free men of color the right of citizenship. This position was further clarified and emphasized with the King's signing of the decree of April 4, 1792, providing citizenship for property-owning free men of color. It was the belief of the Assembly that if the struggle between the white and black property owners and slave owners could end and their loyalty won back to France, then the slave question would be a simple issue. The rebellion would be quickly broken and the slaves returned to their plantations. There had been rebellions in the past, there would be rebellions in the future, but, reasoned the Assembly, slaves could be managed in the long run. But a decree announcing this citizenship was one thing, to enforce it another. On June 2, 1792, the French National Assembly appointed a 3-man civil commission to go to Saint-Domingue and ensure the enforcement of the April 4th decree. One of those commissioners was Leger. Is it Leger or Leger?
Pleasure.
Okay, Leger.
But it's promotion.
Felicite Sontonax. He arrived in Saint-Domingue on September 18, 1792. He immediately approached the free men of color and began to form an alliance, promising them that he was the king's representative who would ensure their citizenship. In record time, Sontonax won over the free men of color who united with loyal French troops to fight a dual battle, struggling to defeat the radical independence-minded whites and to pacify the slaves. Within 4 months, Sontonax had achieved his 3 major goals. He had pacified or at least contained the slave rebellion. He had defeated the primary white resistance. He had held the colony for France.
All right, stop right there. Go back to the 3 main points that he was. So Sontanax was sent because things in Sandama was escalating. If you look at the focus, that he wasn't so much focused on the slave rebellion, even though it was of primary concern. He was more vested in putting the whites back in their place, because the notion and the thinking of the French was that, oh, the slaves them always are rebel. It will be just a matter of time before we get them back into their place. Yeah. So he had pacified or at least contained the slave rebellion. So that was expected, right? He had defeated the primary white resistance because we realized that that is what the whites wanted. The whites wanted to take over the colony and rule it for themselves, right? And also now he had held the colony for France because, of course, we see that had France lost Haiti at that time, it would have meant a disaster for them because Haiti was the pearl of the Antilles, the richest producer of sugar in the world during this period. So it was critical that he was able to restore French control. Good? All right, let's go again.
Sir, I must continue now.
No, not yet, not yet. Move down to Tucson and the slave rebellion. All right, right there. Let us have another reader. Thompson. Thompson. Shania. Thompson. All right, let's Brown, you want to read for us?
Okay, sir. Tucson, Louverture, and the Slave Rebellion. The primary black generals in the earliest days of the Slave Rebellion were Jean-Francois and Bissois and Ginat. Ginat was executed by Jean-Francois and Bissois for excessive cruelty. Shortly after the 1791 uprising, Toussaint Louverture, a former slave who was over 40 years old, joined the camp of the rebels as a medical officer. Toussaint practiced herbal and African healing, but unlike most such healers, he was not a voodoo hungan. However, Toussaint did not remain a medical officer for long. His ability to organize, train, and lead men became immediately apparent. Toussaint rose from his position of aide-de-camp to become a general, first fighting under Bessoir and then a general of his own troops. By January 1793, Sonthonax had contained the slave revolt. Negotiations were going on to end the rebellion and for the officers to force their troops to return to their respective plantations. The deal was that some 300 officers would receive freedom and a pardon from their war crimes. The negotiations dragged on, but seemed near completion when the execution of Louis XVI became known. After that event, the African officers, especially Toussaint, did not trust the French. They turned to the eastern portion of the island and made an alliance with Spain, who was also at war with France. As Toussaint told Sonthonax, we cannot conform to the will of the nation because from the beginning of the world, we have executed the will of a king. We have lost the king of France, but we are esteemed by the king of Spain, who bestows rewards upon us and ceases not to give us scour. Consequently, we were unable to acknowledge you, the commissioners, before you have found a king. February 1793 was an extremely bad month for Sonthonax
All right,
from
hold a
having.
moment there.
Okay.
All right, so we see that with the arrival of Sonthonax, the slaves under pressure from the Spanish army, because I believe it says that he came with about 3,000 soldiers, under pressure from Sonthonax's army, the slave the rebels now turned for assistance. They turned for assistance from neighboring um, from the neighboring Spanish territory, which of course they got. To make it worse, this neighboring territory was already at odds with France. So Spain and France were pretty much already um, in a conflict. So this added to the cause of the slaves because, of course, Spain now got an opportunity to apply pressure on France by helping its slave population. All right, you can go again.
From having seemingly defeated the independence-minded colonists and containing the slaves and nearly arriving at an understanding which would have ended the rebellion completely, he suddenly had a much graver situation facing him. 1. The colonists split into independents and royalist factions now had foreign support and reopened their struggle against the April Decree and against the revolutionary France jurisdiction. 2. The slaves had gone over to the Spanish and were being armed and supplied so they could attack the French in Saint-Domingue. 3. Sonthonax was faced with invasion from British forces out of Jamaica and had to prepare the defense of the colony. 4. Given the gravity of the situation facing France in Europe and given the power of the British Navy in the Caribbean, he could not count on any reinforcement or supplies from France. Truly, Sonthonax's world had come crashing down.
All right. Any observations there that we want to mention? Any observations?
Well, sir, the whole premise of those points is basically saying he went there to solve one problem, the rebellion, and then more problems start. Yeah, because the King of France died, more problems started because the slaves went over to Spain, who was helping them with ammunition and stuff, and then they were faced with attack from the British and the Spanish along with it. So it's like one problem turned into many, and to any person it wouldn't seem as if one could overcome all of that by themselves.
Oh, okay. Oh,
Sir, I have a question.
yes.
At one point, I think, I'm not sure if I'm mistaken, but wasn't it rumored at first that the King of France died?
Yeah, man, he eventually died.
Okay. So that
Yeah,
this is
them
talking
chop off
about the
his
time
head.
he actually died.
Huh?
This is talking about the time that he actually died.
Yeah, so they are saying, notice that it says that um we have lost our king. And the king of Spain is now offering them better than what the king of France was offering them. So that was something that they were looking forward to.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. All right. So we have Daniel now. Anybody was able to get in contact with Kevina? I was trying to call her, but no response. Anybody got calling her? Hello?
Sir, I don't have her number saved. I just have it somewhere.
Oh, all right. Anybody can call her directly?
Sir, I texted her, but it only got one tick. So I
Yeah,
might try to call her.
I did that too. Yeah, try calling her. Try calling her directly.
I'm gonna have to leave the meeting and come back.
All right, no problem. We'll wait for you. All right. All right. So I trust that for those of us who are definitely going to be doing the subject in June, that we saw the notifications for payment. So please ensure that you make your payments for the subjects that you've desired to do. All right, because if you don't pay, then you won't be able to do it. And if you miss the payment, then of course, if it is that you're going to still want to do the subject, you'll have to pay more after the deadline has passed. So everybody is up and running in terms of payment, paying, ready to pay.
Sure, I sent the form out. The deadline is November 20th, right?
Yeah, I saw the form. Yeah.
Okay, sir. I told my father, so, and he was in the meeting when they were discussing the deadline.
Okay. Okay. Anybody else?
Sir, I also sent in the form.
Okay, good. So we're gonna hear from Thompson. Yeah, Thompson. Yes, Diana.
She said that her mother has to sort out stuff with Flow because they're not having any internet.
Okay. Okay. All right. So that means that we can comment. All right. So you can review this information on your own for the Haitian Revolution, because we would have discussed a lot concerning it at the last class. So you have this document in your possession now. So bring us to the next document now, Serena.
Okay, sir, one moment.
Yeah.
Sir, which one? The Burbees one or?
Yeah, Burbees.
Okay, sir. Everyone is seeing?
All right,
Yes,
bring
I
us to the
am.
full screen now.
Yes, yes.
So start slideshow. All right, let's have a reader volunteer. So So Serena, you haven't read it, so your time.
Okay. At the end of this lesson, students should be able to 1. Define and differentiate among the concepts revolt, rebellion, revolution, resistance, war. 2. Identify the leaders akin to the Berbis Rebellion of 1763. 3. Outline accurately at least 3 of 4 causes of the Berbis Rebellion. 4. Assess the reasons for the initial success of the Berbis Rebellion. 5. Evaluate at least 5 of 10 reasons for the eventual failure of the rebellion. And finally, 6. Examine the role played by Coffee as the outright leader of the rebellion.
All right, so let us see now. No, don't move. Go back to the first.
1 minute, sir. I don't know what's happening.
Yeah.
Skip to the other one?
No, stay there.
Okay.
All right, so we have, let me see how much of you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 5 of you are here, and we have 6 objectives. So let us see. So volunteers. So volunteer yourself. One person will take 1 and 2. The next person will take 3, 4, 5, and 6. So at the
Sir, I'll
end,
do
you'll
2.
need to, it's 1 and 2, so you'll need to give me the summary afterwards.
No, never mind.
Sir, I can do 1 and 2.
Sir, I'll do number 3.
All right. So it's all right.
Sir,
So
I'll
everybody,
do number 6.
all right. All right. So let's go. All right. So those are the definitions as per the first objective. And we know all of this already from third form. So let's move to the next. And there we have Burbees.
Sir, where is this exactly?
Where
Sir,
is
this is
Burbees?
on the course, right?
Huh?
I think I remember this from the course. I'm not sure.
Oh, yeah, man. So Burbees is, I won't tell you. You tell me.
Sir, 1 minute. I'm gonna get my glasses because I can't see.
Okay. So, did you know that Burbees is actually in Guyana? Right? So it's actually in Guyana. All right. So let's move to the next slide. All right. Who is our reader? The person who is in charge of this section, you will do the reading. So Danielle, that's you.
Okay. Berbis Rebellion leaders. On February 23rd, 1763, the Berbis Rebellion started on a plantation on the Kanji River. The rebellion had initial quality leadership. Kufi, Akara, I don't know if I'm pronouncing these right. Kofi, Akara, and Atta. Kofi, Akara, and Atta. Atta? Yeah, Atta. They were unified and organized. Enslaved belonged to Akan, Congolese, and Angolan tribes?
It's Congolese.
Congolese. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. So move to the next one now. No? Next slide.
One moment, sir.
Okay.
Sir, for some reason it's not moving.
Oh, you freeze again.
Sir, I don't like it. I'm clicking for it to move and it won't.
Oh,
So
you're gonna run again. All right, we got it. All right, so here we see the depiction of, you know that Guyana is known as for the swamps, right? Very swampy area. And we see the depiction here. All right, move to the next one. So the causes, the person who has the causes, go ahead and read.
Causes of Berbis Rebellion. The apathy of whites, slave underfed due to lack of food from provision grounds and planters not buying enough imported foods. 2. Slaves wanted revenge due to years of ill treatment and oppression. Many Dutch estates were owned by absentee planters who left overseers in charge. These overseers were often cruel and did little to enhance the well being of enslaved labor force. Enslaved people wanted lasting freedom. Enslaved were inspired and motivated by a Maroon revolt in Suriname the year prior.
Go back. Explain what it means, the apathy of the whites.
Um, Meaning that the whites didn't really care.
Yeah, so the whites didn't care about the slaves. So they were underfed, ill-treated, ill-treated, right? And there was a lot of suffering that they had to endure at the hands of the whites. And of course, the fact that many of the white landowners left their property in charge, their property to be run by other individuals while they were away. They really didn't treat the slaves properly at all. And of course, lasting freedom, Maroon Rebellion. We were supposed to look at the Maroons today, but we're looking at the revolts. So we'll get to the Maroons at some point. All right, go again. So the person who is doing the success.
Sir, I think I'll take this one.
Okay, take it, it's yours.
Reasons for initial success. Many Amerindians, which the whites were depending on for help, had fled. Help from overseas was slow. Only after 2 months after the start of the rebellion did 100 troops come from Suriname on British ships. A dysentery epidemic, 1756 to 1765, had severely affected whites, troops weakened by disease and lack of food. The rebellion took the whites by surprise, no real contingency plans. Whites not unified, some fled, would not help others, would not listen to orders from the governor.
Okay, thank you. And we realize that this is pretty straightforward in terms of why the revolt was successful at the starting phase.
Sir, there's
Because of,
5 more. It's
right,
10.
so the whites, because of their own being disorganized, we realized that there was still an Amerindian population there, because of course we realized that the Spanish in their efforts to completely wipe out the Amerindian population, it didn't work. Not all of the Amerindians died in terms of the Taínos, but some were still left alive. Right? All right, let's see what the others, let's get to the others, Brown.
Okay. The rebelling slaves were able to seize more arms and ammunition from the abandoned estates. The enslaved outnumbered the whites. Many of the rebelling enslaved were fresh off the boat and wanted to regain their free status. Military strategy and discipline of enslaved were initially strong, hence they controlled most of the territory, pushing whites to malaria-infested mouth of, is it Kanje or Kanhe? I'll just say Kanje River.
Yeah,
The
Tangier.
whites forced the governor von Huggenheim to agree to evacuate the territory.
We realized that um, which which nation's territory was this?
The Dutch.
Right, it was a Dutch territory. Good. Let's move again.
One moment.
So why did the Berbis Rebellion fail? So the leading instigator in the rebellion was Coffee, and the Coffee began to play politics with the governor, writing negotiation letters about sharing the colony. The governor tricked him by buying time to get reinforcement. So as we realize that later on down in Haiti, a similar thing occurred where Tucson, instead of pushing the advantage that he had, he also started to play politics and was later defeated. The troops, of course, later arrived and crushed the slaves mercilessly. The alliance of Amerindians and Dutch troops overpowered the slaves eventually. Enslaved let their guard down too early because we realized that when you're winning, you feel like you're on top, and it's easy at that time to just take things for granted. Similar thing occurred in back in the Bible in the book of Daniel when the Babylonian Empire was up and running. The king at the time, well, the second in command, while his father was out fighting, he took his eyes off the prize and started having parties and up and parties and carrying on. And while he was busy dancing and dining, the Persians were making their way into the great walls of Babylon. So we need to always be mindful that when we are up, we ensure that we keep our eyes open and keep our focus keep our eyes on the ball. All right. Lack of sufficient food supplies led to discontent among the slaves. Because of course everybody needs food. If you're not getting food, you have a vex. Right? And you're not going to fight. Man can't fight for a hungry belly, don't.
Yes, sir.
Some Creole slaves surrendered to the whites and crossed to the other side because they realized, say, yo, slave them already. And plus the whites get reinforcement. The division in leadership, Coffee wanted to negotiate. Akara wanted to expel the whites. So two leaders, two different plans. So a power struggle, of course, ensued among the leadership. So one want to go east, one want to go west. In May, Coffee killed his close followers and then committed suicide. What kind of business is that? That's not good leadership at all. Atta replaced Coffee and kept up the rebellion, but was later betrayed and attacked by Akara. So we see where it just the slaves them turned from one another. December 1763, two large set of troops attacked the rebellion enslaved at the same time. Most enslaved ran into the forest and others were hunted down and killed. Rebellion ended. Next person now.
Sure, I think I got this one. All right, Coffee's leadership. No other enslaved was acknowledged as leader during the revolt. Enslaved and white saw Coffee as the brain power behind the revolt. Coffee sent other enslaved on missions to spread the revolt to other plantations around British Guiana in 1763. It was Coffee's leadership that was challenged by one of his deputies. Coffee tried to secure constant food to feed the enslaved during the revolt by putting some Africans to work in the fields. Coffee was said to be the one who led other enslaved to capture plantations along the Kanji River in February 1763.
Yeah man, that's pretty straightforward. We see the brains behind the operation. Once Coffee was at the helm, then the slaves prospered. Once him start the foolishness, then everything break down in a shambles. Because of course, Akara and Atta perhaps felt that they could do a better job than Coffee, but really and truly, Coffee was the face of the revolution, the name behind the revolution. Next,
Sir, I think it's
right?
finished.
Yeah, what good. So go ahead and give me your 2 cents and your pieces on the revolution, the revolt rather, from objective one coming down.
Sir, for me, I think good leadership is important in everything because with Coffee, once he stopped focusing, everything just went and fell into pieces. And I think that's very important, especially if you want to go against someone or a group of people who are in charge and who basically set the rules of what goes on in the society. I think if Coffee focused and did what a good leader is supposed to, then I think the rebellion would have probably succeeded.
All right, next person.
Okay, I think Coffee was indeed a good leader, but as Ayana said, and as you said, sir, one, if you're on top after a while, you're going to drop your guard because he did do good things. He made sure to send people out on missions to spread the word of the revolt. He made sure that there was food being planted to feed the members of the revolt. He led other enslaved people to free plantations. So he was a good leader, but then he dropped his guard and opened himself to being tricked and manipulated. And then in the end, he killed himself and he killed other people. I don't know, probably out of shame and guilt. And that ultimately led to the rebellion being suppressed.
So, what lesson can we learn from this?
Uh, Sir, we must always keep our eyes on the goal and never become comfortable with the the minimal amount of success that we achieve. We must always try to push the limits of what we think we can do.
All right. What is the greatest uh would you say setback to success?
Sir, I think that would be complacency.
Okay.
Overconfidence.
All right. The greatest for me, the greatest one is success itself. Because once individuals begin to become successful, they begin to stop doing those things which make them successful. They begin to stop pushing, they begin to stop driving towards a greater goal. Because here they had achieved something which looked like it was success, but in fact, it was just a temporary victory. So we should never confuse a temporary success with actually reaching our destination because there is so much more that we can achieve, so much more that we can achieve. And when we look at where we have been and where we are supposed to go, and even when we reach where we think we ought to be, there is so much more that we can do. There's so much more potential that we have. So let us not be like coffee. Let us not drop the ball. Let us push right through. Whether it is through problems, sickness, let us always endeavor to do our best because only our best is good enough. And if you've done your best already, then create a better and then best it. All right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. All right, let's
Yes,
go
sir.
to the bring up the next slide now.
Everyone seen it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, I was on mute. Serena, exit and tell me how many pages. Just minimize the full screen. I want to see how many pages we have. All right, so it's okay, 11. All right. So who's reading?
So I'll start.
Okay, good.
Resistance and revolt. When injustice becomes law, resistance becomes duty. Who wrote this quote?
When injustice becomes law, resistance becomes duty, which is right, don't?
Yes,
Because
sir.
if the law that is supposed to
Yes,
protect
sir.
you, if the law that is supposed to protect you becomes injustice, then it is your duty to stand up for your rights, yeah? All right, let's move. And again, we define the key points. Then we categorize the two main types of resistance strategies used by the enslaved people. We describe the characteristics of each type, and where possible, give examples. Then we evaluate the impact of each strategy on the plantation society, which was something we would have looked at the last class. But for a better depth, we will go into it now. All right, let's move. So who's reading?
I can read this part. What is a slave resistance? Slave resistance speaks to the many ideas and actions of enslaved Africans to free themselves from the system of chattel slavery in the New World. Resistance to captivity and enslavement in West Africa continued on the ships en route to the Americas. Resistance of enslaved Africans were even more recorded in the Caribbean, where both men and women resisted slavery by using various strategies. In Tobago, in Tobago, historians have noted occasions where enslaved people have marched to their governor's office to protest against injustice.
Says. All right, thank you so much. One point of note coming out of this is chattel slavery. Enlighten me. What is chattel slavery?
Okay, sir. So, well, as you know, there are two types of slavery: domestic slavery that people practice in Africa, and chattel slavery. Chattel slavery is what the Europeans use. Like it's more severe than domestic slavery in a sense where people aren't treated as people; they're treated more as property or yeah property, and they're abused and taken advantage of. While in like a domestic slavery situation, you're treated as part of the family and you can work your way up. In a chattel system, in chattel slavery, you are a slave forever. You have no other identity apart from that, according to the European stance.
Okay, very good. So, born a slave, die a slave. Chattel slavery. You are put in chains as well as a part of this type of system. All right, let's move again. Next page. All right, and next page again. All right, so two main forms of resistance. Let's have Ayana reading this part.
Okay, types of resistance. The two main types of slave resistance were insurrectionary resistance, as in armed attack, revolt, rebellion, revolution, marronage, and arson. These are commonly termed active resistance methods. They usually require mass amounts of physical activity, use of weapons, careful planning, and caused major damages and disruptions. Number two, non-insurrectionary resistance, as in malingering slash go slow, poisoning,
Malingering.
malingering
Yeah.
slash go slow, poisoning, sabotage, fiend sickness, working along with the system, and female use of their sexuality. Some enslaved employed suicide and infanticide. Most of these methods were seen as passive resistance, as they were not easily noticed by planters but still had an effect.
What does it say that most of them were do what? Considered as?
Passive.
All right. So which suggests to us that they could have been active if they were large scale, right? But because, all right, so the large scale ones that we could point to would have been like um, sabotage, and if we look at suicide and infanticide, those could have been considered as active. All right. So there we have the examples. We have the two types, and
Sir,
it's clear to is it clear to everybody?
yes, sir. I have a question though.
Yes. Go ahead.
Sir, when in insurrectory um resistance, it says working along with the system and female use of their sexuality. What is that actually supposed to mean? I don't actually get it.
Working along with the system. All right. So female use of their sexuality. Um. So of course you know that the the colored population or mulattoes was where whites and black came together to have offspring, right? Now, it wasn't always a case where it was rape or woman was forced, but rather for some, it was by choice because they wanted to, you know, go ahead and duck out of certain responsibilities. So, if you have your charms, you use your charms to your benefit. Yeah. So you realize that okay, so they like us black women, so they like them thing black. So then just work along with the system and stand on and make the whites happy. And in that way, now then they would receive better treatment, right? So if you realize that if you work, you won't get a beating, then you might as well just continue work. Yeah, you may not like it, but it's a way to resist getting hurt. Yeah, so you just work along with the system. And plus, you realize that when you work, you get better treatment. When you try to resist or not to comply, you get beaten or you get whipping. So you just do your thing and give them what they want. What you call it, the whatever kind of syndrome. You just surrender to your captors.
Stockholm syndrome.
Right, Stockholm syndrome. So for many of the blacks, then just never bother with the foolishness. Then just pretend to get along and pretend to go along with everything, hoping not to get in any trouble or problem. All right, let's move to the next slide. Like you go too far. Ooh, your system is having a mind of its own today. All right, who's reading? Ooh, all right. You're right there. So who's going? Brown, your time. Long time we not hear Brown voice now. You're gone quiet, pan with sir.
Sorry, sir.
No problem, my dear.
Armed attacks. These were most common with the newly arrived slave Africans. They were not fully seasoned slash integrated into plantation society and had vivid memories of their life in Africa as free people. Haitian Revolution is a prime example as many of the slaves involved were fresh off the boat, so to speak, as newly arrived from Africa. Examples of planned uprising included Taki's War 1760, Burbees 1763, Haiti 1791, Barbados 1816, Demerara
Right.
1823, and Jamaica 1831.
Okay. So it says that they were not fully seasoned. What is seasoning?
So that's basically when they integrate the slaves into the workings of the plantation. So basically it's like a orientation where they teach them exactly what is expected of them and break them in a sense. Because as you know, Africans were strong people, so they had to break them into the slave mentality in order to use them.
All right, very good. Give me a second there. All right, so seasoning was important, important, because seasoning was what allowed the masters to have control, well, supposed control over the enslaved population. All right, let's move to the next slide. All right, maroonage. All right, is it time for Thompson to read? Thompson? I mean, we haven't heard from you in a while. Thompson? Shania? All right. Shania. Ayana, read for us.
Okay. So what is this called? What how you pronounce that, sir?
Yes,
Maronage?
sir.
Maroonage.
Oh, because it has two R's. Wouldn't
Yeah, some persons pronounce it say what you said. I don't know
I
how to
said
say it.
Maronage.
Maronage. Yeah, some people pronounce it like that, and some people say maroonage.
Okay, sir. So
Yeah.
Maroonage. The Maroons were escaped slaves. They ran away into the interior mountainous areas from their Spanish-owned plantations when the British took Jamaica from Spain in 1655. The word maroon comes from the Spanish word cimarrones, which meant mountaineers or escapee. Name 3 well-known maroons from Jamaica. How do you think slaves running away would have affected the running of plantations?
Okay. All right. Yeah. Good job. All right. Let's answer these questions. So we are supposed to name 3 well-known maroons from Jamaica. Come. Let's go.
Sir,
Nanny?
So Nanny of the
I
Maroons.
was about to say Nanny.
I have others. So I
Beat it
researched.
to the punch.
Well, no, it's in the book. There was one Debolas and
One
one
de bolas,
Deseras,
one de ceras,
Taki,
Taki, very good.
Kojo,
Kojo, yes,
Akompong. Yeah, but
and
not really well.
Akompong,
Um,
and Akompong. So we supposed to name 3. You've named enough. Good. So it comes from the Spanish word cimarrones, which meant mountaineers or escapee. Right. My little daughter is here telling me some of the answers. Says she has it in her social studies book. Happy days. They learn so fast, don't they? All
yes,
right.
sir.
How do you
Yes, they
think
do.
slaves running away would have affected the running of the plantation? So we are looking at maroonage as an insurrectionary method. So how do you think that this practice would have been active?
Sir, if a whole bunch of them ran away at one time,
So the whole not in terms of numbers, but we need more details as to how it will affect. Because we know that what maroonage is slaves moving away from the plantation, right? So we are
let's
asking,
workforce.
so how will slaves moving away from the plantation affect the plantation?
The production rate would decrease.
Remember, it's not a multiple choice question I'm asking you, Ayana. I like meat. I like a lot of, yeah? I like a lot of chicken on my bone, you know? You can't give me a maga piece of chicken. I like a fat piece of chicken. Yeah?
If okay, the running away of the slaves would have decreased the rate of production in plantations.
All right. That's
So
that's
is
the
that better, sir?
it is much better, but that is like
Okay.
the thesis statement to that point. So once you mentioned that it will affect the production on the plantation, we'll now go into what are the areas of production that the slaves are involved in. And we realize that the absence of slaves to do work in different areas of the plantation is going to affect it significantly because slaves encompassed all areas of plantation life that dealt with the production of and manufacturing of sugar, right? So no slaves equal no sugar. No sugar equals no profit. No profit equal business lockdown because every business is in business to make a profit. Yeah. So we realize that slaves were vastly important at all areas in the production, especially when it comes on to planting, monitoring of the cane, like weeding, mulching, um, weeding, and also harvesting the cane. When it moved from the fields now to the factory, slaves also played an important part, right, in the different phases. So if we had a case where maroonage was um, dominant on a particular plantation, then the plantation would be affected in terms of production. Now, apart from production, also maroonage influenced other slaves to run away. So that was also important because if 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 let's say so we have so if four of you are here now, if four of you are in my class, right? No, I can't use this example. So if four slaves are living on a plantation, right? And the four slaves are necessary for production. If one slave runs away and the other slaves realize that nothing is done to recapture said slave and that slave is successful, then another slave is going to run away because he wants to escape the harsh treatment. Now, what you found is that what the Maroons did when they ran away, many of them returned to the plantation to look for their relatives, their friends, etc. Not only that, but also to capture plantation equipment. So to steal food, to steal crops, to steal equipment, right? So that is what was happening. So those would have been the effect of the slaves running away. So one, loss of production, loss of or depletion in productivity. Two, Maroons' success encouraged other slaves to run away. And of course, when Maroons run away, oftentimes they would return to the plantation to steal plantation equipment, food, etc. Right? All right. Let's move again. And then we have arson. What is arson? Fire, right? So,
Yes,
what
sir.
ways might fire affect the plantation? Who is talking now? What ways might fire affect the plantation? All right, Daniel, you can
If you burnt the crops
anything.
before time, they couldn't harvest it.
Daniel,
Can you hear
remember?
me?
Yeah, man, start from the top.
Yes. So if you burnt crops before you could harvest it, you would lose a lot of money from that, obviously. And if you burnt down important buildings, especially like the factory, and you couldn't use the equipment, it could slow down production.
Very good, very good. That's it. Anybody else?
Also, I would like to add to Daniel's point that burning down the factories. That would be a loss of equipment, which would mean a loss on the planters' part because you have to invest money to have the equipment, and having that being damaged and destroyed, that's a loss of money.
Right. So on the one hand, when things are destroyed, you suffer because of the things that are destroyed. That's one. But you also lose time. So because if the factory is destroyed, especially during a harvesting period, and there is no equipment to do the different aspects of the production, then a lot of time is going to be lost until that those parts can be replaced. So you're not only losing money one side, but you're losing money on every side, every angle you're losing money. You're just losing money. All right. And of course, the slaves wouldn't be working, wouldn't be doing as much work either because they don't have any work to do really because the factory is down. The cane field is burned. Not really a lot of work to be done.
Sir.
Yes.
And also because they wouldn't have anything to do, they would have more time to plan in the chaos to escape or to start some sort of rebellion.
As the white man would say, idle hands is the devil's playground. So now that the slaves were idle because they didn't have as much work to do because plantation equipment was down, factory was down, nothing to harvest, then of course they might get ideas of rebellion. Good. Let's go to the next slide. Who's reading? Or is it a video?
Yes, sir, it's a video.
Okay, so you read by yourself.
So I think it's finished.
All right. Do we have another slide or that's it? All right. So the discussion now. State 3 forms of passive resistance that you observed in the video. So one from each person.
Suicide.
Infanticide.
One from each person. That's just two. Nobody else? About sabotage. All right, so the persons who didn't answer before will answer now. What evidence suggests is that men and women display separate resistance strategies? All right. So if we see the evidence, we realize that the evidences that we can compile lay in the roles that women and men played on the plantation, right? Men were often, more than not, field slaves, right? So they did not have contact with the great house, right? As in the larger majority of men. So more women were in and around the great house than men, which meant that the approach of women in terms of resistance would have been different because they were in a different location, right? So that's one evidence we can identify. So men, in terms of their resistance, we know it that they attacked their circumstances. So the cane fields, the factory, the great house, the whites in general, and also they tried to to destroy other areas on the plantation, right? For the women, we realize that they, in terms of their resistance in the great house, poisoning, trying to poison the master's food, spitting in the master's food, things like that, right? All right, thank you very much, Serena. All right, so things that you must remember: education is the passport to the future. Tomorrow belongs to those who prepare for today. I prefer dangerous freedom over peaceful slavery. I would rather die among yonder gallows than to live a slave. Yes, famous words by our national hero Samuel Sharp. He would prefer to die than to live in slavery. All right. What time do we have on our clock? So it's now 5:14. All right. So what have we learned today? So everybody will get 2 minutes to tell me what they have learned today. So I'm going to give you 2 minutes to prepare for your 2 minutes each. All right. And then we will start not with Ayana this time because Ayana always starting us off. So we will start with Brown, then we will go to Thompson, then we will go to Serena, then Daniel, and then Ayana will be last. I do not want anybody to type anything in the chat. I want you to use your words. So your 2 minutes begins now. So we are going to come back at 18 minutes after 5 o'clock. All right, it's 18 minutes after the hour. So, Brown. Brown.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we're starting with you.
Okay, sir. What I learned was about the resistance war, where different where groups of people came and to go against the authoritative power. And I learned about two types of slavery: domestic slavery, where in Africa they treated each other as family, and chattel slavery, where they weren't treated as humans, and once they were born a slave, they were always a slave. I also learned about the Berbis Rebellion, where main causes of it were because the whites did not care much about the slaves. The slaves were not fed properly, and Yeah. I also learned that because of all the trouble that the whites gave them and the beatings for not doing their work properly, the slaves also wanted to get revenge on the whites also. One of the leaders was Kofi, and he was a really good leader, but because he was at the top and he started to get a little too, well, confident, and so he was fooled by the other government, which led to him ending his life.
All right, Lady Brown, your 2 minutes is over, and in good time, you're finished. All right, let's go to Serena.
Okay, so today I learned about two major revolts that happened in the 18th century, the Haitian Revolution and the Haitian Revolution of 17 from 1791 to 1804, and the Berbis Revolution that took place in 1763, both of which occurred because of the dissatisfaction of certain groups. For instance, in the Haitian Revolution, the coloreds wanted to be treated as the whites, and the slaves, they wanted to be free. So, um, but the major cause of the revolt, or the major group in the revolt, was the slaves, because they wanted to be free. Same thing in the Berbis Revolution that was led by Taki, Akara, and Atta. The slaves were dissatisfied with the poor treatment and the lack of food, and so they wanted a change. But it ultimately failed because their leader, Kofi, got distracted and started playing politics, and they were fighting against each other. The three leaders were fighting for power, and so that gave the Dutch the opportunity to counterattack and eventually succeed in suppressing the revolt. I also learned about we also reviewed the two types of resistance: active and passive.
All
Um,
right, active and passive. Your 2 minutes has expired.
really?
Yeah,
Okay.
time flies when you're having fun, my dear. Let's go to Danielle.
Okay, so I learned about I can't pronounce this word. Sir, can you pronounce the word of the place in Ghana again?
The word in where? Guyana?
Ghana, the one with the revolution in February 23 from the Dutch.
Burbees? Oh, Demerara?
Yes, thank you. No, the Burbees, sir.
Burbees.
Burbees. Yes, the
Yeah.
Berbis Revolution. I learned that yes. I learned that they gained the revolution was against the Dutch. It was on February 23, 17 something. It was on a plantation on the Kanji River. I learned about the three leaders, Kofi, Akara, I think, and Atta. I learned that there are two types of slavery, domestic and chattel. I didn't know that. And that chattel slavery, that they basically treat the slaves as property. Um, I learned about, I learned that female and the male slaves had two different ways of rebelling. I learned about the difference between active and passive rebellion, and I learned, well, not learned, but was refreshed on the difference between rebellion and war and revolt. I don't know
All
if I
right.
don't think I yeah, that's basically all I learned.
Yeah. All right. Good. In good timing as well. In 2 minutes. All right. So let's hear from Ah, Yana. Ayana.
Okay, sir. Sir, I don't know if what I'll say is gonna last the whole 2 minutes, but I'll just go. So, from the start of the class, I was refreshed on the Haitian Revolution, even though other people weren't there at the time. And I learned more reasons for the Haitian Revolution, and some other people involved in it as well. And then after that, I learned about the what's it? I don't know how to pronounce that. You know, the the name of the place in Guyana. Sir, I don't know how to pronounce it.
What, Burbees?
Yes, sir. Burbees. I learned about that. Reasons for it as well, and I learned about how the slaves would rebel. Some ways including infanticide, poisoning the planters, suicide as well, and um, I learned about insurrectionary resistance, which is more, it just basically means more obvious ways of rebelling and more, I guess, dangerous ways of rebelling, because setting a place on fire, for example, that's that's more damaging and it's more obvious. And non-insurrectionary resistance are more subtle ways of rebelling, as I said before, like infanticide, I think. Um, okay, so that's all I guess. I don't.
All right, good, good. You're learning. You're learning beautifully, my people. All right, so let us see where we're at now. So we are at a stage where we have for next week we have the following things to do. So we're gonna do um do I give you guys homework? I mean, I don't know. Homework? Nah. How many persons have assignments over the weekend?
Me, sir.
Who name me?
Probably all of
I
us.
do.
No, sir. I think all of us have a lot of assignments to do over the weekend.
All right, yeah. I don't want to give you anything to do.
Yeah,
All
so you
right,
can still tell us though, in case.
all right, yeah. So next week we are looking at the the Barbados Rebellion, right? We are looking at the Demerara Revolt. We are looking at the Sam Sharp Rebellion, and we are looking at the Maroons in Jamaica and Suriname, right? And the Bush Negroes of Guyana. So those things are what we have to do, and then we will be finished with theme 3, and we'll move to theme 4. All right. So those
Okay,
are the
sir.
things that we have to do.
The
We could
Okay,
what
sir.
we could do, we could just look at the Maroons and then go straight into theme 4, because all the revolts that I mentioned that are a part of this theme will come back again in theme 4, because these would have been major points along the fight for emancipation. So that's what we're going to do instead. So we're just going to finish off on the Maroons, and then we go straight into theme 4, where we will just cover the revolt and look at how these revolts would have helped along the road to emancipation. All right. Um, let me hear from you now. So, apart from Kelvina, who has a class on Friday at 3:30? Who does RE with us on Friday at 3:30? Anybody here? Nobody? Nobody does RE.
No,
All right,
sir.
good. So that means, so can we do 3:30 on Fridays instead of 4:30?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So,
Sure,
sir, it
sir.
would be 3:30 to
It would
5:30,
be
sir?
3:30 until we stop.
Boop. Okay, sir.
Yeah, so we can stop at 5:30, we can stop at 5,
Okay.
we can stop at 4:30. So yeah, that means that we have more time because, as I said, we want to try and cover as much things as possible so that when we go into next year, we are not lagging behind, and it the amount of work that you have to do won't affect you. If we like, let's say January, we have to go back to school, right? To face. We would have covered enough because with the online thing now, you realize that you won't necessarily be doing an exam of sort in December. You may not be doing an exam. So if we try and do as much as possible so that when we go back in January, then we will have less things to cover and more time um for school and for practicing exams and so on. That's why we are speeding into our SBA as we've been doing. So we give me an update quickly on the SBAs then. I know Keviana is pretty much complete.
Sir, I have to do just objective 3, then I'm finished.
All right, so objective 3 and the conclusion. Serena?
Yes, sir.
Sir, I made the corrections you told me last
Mm-hmm.
night. So I was reading it over to see if there's anything I can change.
All right, cool. Daniel?
I'm finishing up my second objective, sir, and then going to send to you for correction.
Did I mark the first one already? First objective?
No, sir. You
No, all
saw
right.
part of it.
All right. So yeah, that means before you, all right, finish up objective 2 and then send me 1 and 2 together. Well, send me everything that you've done so far so we can look at it to see if you're going on the right path. All right. Brown?
All right, sir. Yes, sir.
Brown?
Sir, I sent to you yesterday, and the only thing I have left to do is the conclusion.
Okay, I gave you some feedback, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right, cool. So everybody is going on fine with them SBA. All right, beautiful. All right, so um we normally don't pray to leave, but today we have to pray. So if you would bow your heads while Serena offers a word of prayer for everyone.
Most righteous and heavenly Father, we come to you this evening to thank you for life and for strength and for bringing us throughout the day, O God, and for also for bringing us through this session. I pray, O God, that we will be able to remember and all that we have learned and apply it on the day of the exam. Keep us safe, O God. In your name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Mhm.
All right, so try and get some rest. Try to stay away from the
Amen.
screens as much as is possible. All right, guys, as much as is possible, try to stay away from your screen because next week you're going to be back again into screen time. So
Okay, sir.
try and get some rest away from your screen. If you have to read anything concerning with school, you can always YouTube a video and listen to it to help you. So try and leave the screen alone this weekend, at least for one day. Yeah?
Yes, sir.
Okay, sir.
All right. Bye-bye.
Okay, sir.
Bye, sir.
Okay,
Bye,
sir.
bye.
Goodbye, sir.
Bye.
Bye.